Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel where I dive deep into everything related to studying, working and immigrating to Canada. I am Evans, and today I'm going to walk you through the massive announcement from the Canadian government, a 2-year extension for postgraduate work permits. This is a huge deal for thousands of international students, so let's break it down. So here is what I'll be trying to cover in this particular video. First, the significance of this 2-year PGWP extension, who is eligible for this new policy, the application process, that's what documents you need and how to apply, the impact of the extension on students and the Canadian economy in general, and the role of provincial nominee program in this policy, and also the potential challenges and future implication for you as somebody who is moving to Canada or possibly currently in Canada. By the end of this video, I expect that you have a solid understanding of how this could affect your plans to stay in Canada and pursue permanent residency. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about how this 2-year PGWP extension is such a big deal. For international graduates in Canada, the postgraduate work permit is a critical step towards building a career and eventually applying for permanent residency. But here is the catch. Many graduates were facing the expiration of their permits before securing enough Canadian work experience to qualify for PR, because when it comes to most of the pathways, you need some amount of Canadian work experience to be able to at least secure yourself in those routes. Like the express entry, for instance, you need to secure at least 1 year work experience in Canada, possibly to get you that extra point that you need to secure that permanent residency in the draw. Now with this new extension, graduates can get additional 2 years to stay in Canada, gain the necessary work experience and position themselves for better immigration programs like the express entry or the provincial nominee program. Without this extension, many would have to leave Canada and interrupt their PR journey. This change gives students more breathing room and more time to transition smoothly into Canadian workforce. So if your PGWP was set to expire soon, this extension is literally a lifeline for you, something that you should take advantage of. Now, who exactly can benefit from this extension? The Canadian government has laid out a clear eligibility requirements. Let's go through them. The first group is current PGWP holders. If you currently hold a PGWP that is set to expire before the end of 2024, you are eligible for this 2-year extension. So anybody who is currently still on the PGWP permit that is set to expire before the end of this year, you are in luck. You can take advantage of this new directive and at least try to secure yourself a 2-year extension that can extend your stay in Canada. Secondly, those with expired PGWPs. If your PGWP has already expired, you may still qualify, but only if you already applied for a new work permit under the correct regulations. For example, if your PGWP expired after May 7th, 2024, you may still be able to extend on this new 2-year directive that they've at least come up with, which means that if you fall into the category of those whose PGWP expired after May 7th, then you are also in luck. You can also take advantage of this new policy to secure yourself a 2-year extension to continue staying in Canada. The third group is in-process applications. If you have already applied for an extension and you are waiting for approval, don't worry, you have been covered in this new policy that they've come up with. You realize that with the new policy that they are coming up with, they are trying to retain as much talent in Canada as possible, because with the new directives that they've come up with in the past of trying to at least reduce the number of foreign workers that are coming into the country, they want to make sure that at least the people who have been educated in the country and have the skill set to stay are staying. That's why you realize that they are trying to cover people who have expired PGWP, those whose PGWP are about to expire, and even those who are currently in the process of new applications, because they know these people have the skill sets to be able to serve in the Canadian workforce and at least be successful if they enter the workforce, compared to them at least leaving and going back to their home country right after studying just because they could not extend their stay in Canada. So if you fit into any of these categories, you are in luck. It is important to act fast since this policy has specific guidelines and criteria. We always tell you that when some of these things come about and you fall into a category, make sure you are taking advantage, because if you listen to what the Prime Minister and the Minister of Immigration are saying, by the end of this new year, a lot of changes are going to happen. So if they are coming up with something as good as this and you qualify, you better take advantage before those slots are closed. Now let's talk about how you can apply for this 2-year extension and what documents you will need. Here is a quick rundown of the key requirements that you need to take advantage of this 2-year extension. Firstly, you need an employment letter. You need a letter of employment from your current employer as proof that you are working or will be working in Canada during this extension period, because you realize that they just don't want to give the extension to people for giving's sake. They want to make sure that employers are having people to fill gaps in their workforce. That's why they are asking you to at least get an employer letter, which means either you have secured an employment or you are currently working. So instead of them allowing your PGWP to expire and as a result be out of status and have to leave the country, they are extending your stay so that you can continue working for that employer and stay and contribute to the Canadian economy. Secondly, you need support letters. If you are applying through a provincial nominee program, you also need a letter of support from the provincial authority. This is especially important for those in provinces like Alberta or Manitoba, where these letters are very common, because I've seen people who were nominated through the Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program being issued some of these letters. And personally, I know somebody whose letter said that the work permit that that person was going to get will be to the end of the passport, which means it's even going to be more than that 2 years that they were promised. Thirdly, you will need the application forms. Don't forget to submit all the standard immigration forms as part of your application process, because with all these documents you need to still go ahead to fill the forms and submit your application as quickly as possible. And if you go onto the residency website, they've laid out clearly the kind of forms that you will need to fill to be able to meet this category. So once you've gathered all these documents, you can apply online through the IRCC portal. Make sure everything is submitted before your PGWP expires. If you fall into the category of those whose PGWP have not expired but is going to expire before the end of this year, or if yours has already expired, I would advise that you apply as quickly as possible before you start losing any eligibility in this case. Now, what does this extension mean for Canada and the international students alike? For students, I would say this extension gives you more time to secure meaningful work experience, which is critical for you to apply for permanent residency. You will have more opportunities to develop professionally and enhance your Canadian work credentials, making your profile stronger for express entry or even PMP, because with most of the PMP programs, you need to have some amount of work experience in the province to be able to qualify. If you come to a place like Manitoba, they will require you to have at least 6 months of work experience to qualify. For Canada, I would say from an economic standpoint, this extension is a win-win. International graduates play a vital role in the Canada's economy, especially in sectors that are experiencing labor shortage, like tech, healthcare, and even skilled trades. By allowing more graduates to stay and work, Canada is addressing a key gap in the workforce. In 2022 alone, international students contributed over 37 billion to the Canadian economy. Allowing them to stay longer just makes sense economically. So with all these new changes that are coming, it's going to be difficult for Canada to say that I'm not going to allow international students to come in, or even those who have come in, I'm going to find a way to push them out. As much as they want to keep the best and the cream of the cream, they will still want to make sure that as much as possible. Most of these people are coming in because they are bringing money into the economy, and those who have even come in are going to end up spending money to feed the economy, because these guys are going to buy cars, they are going to get mortgage, they are going to take loans, and they are going to at least help pay taxes, because the Canadian workforce is growing and they need people to at least come in and replace them. Now let's talk about how provincial nominee programs fit into this policy. For those of you who are aiming to get PR through PMP, this extension is a huge boost. Provinces like Alberta, Manitoba, and even British Columbia rely on international graduates to fill critical labor shortages, and they have the authority to issue support letters to help you qualify for the extension. So in most cases, when they nominate you through the PMP program and you decide to pursue the non-express entry route, the province will go ahead to issue this letter to you that you can now use to go and at least go and extend and get a 2-year PGWP extension whilst you wait for them to process your permanent residency, which will allow you to stay another 2 years whilst you sort yourself out when it comes to the PR journey. And this is especially beneficial for those of you who have already been nominated or are in the process of applying for PMP. Each province has its own set of requirements, so make sure you are updated to the latest criteria for the province that at least you are trying to pursue yours through. Now, while this extension is a fantastic news, it is important to remember that it is temporary. The policy is set to expire on December 31st, 2024, and the government has stated that they could repeal it at any time if they feel enough work permits have already been issued. So you need to know that it's just temporary. So if you qualify, don't just sit there and say that I'm going to take my time and do it at my own convenience, because even though it's set to expire by the end of this year, they can choose to repeal it at any time. And if you've seen what has been going on, they can easily change their mind anytime, because just recently they just extended people who came with a service and allowed them to apply and extend their stay and even get work permits. A few months later, they came back and repealed it, which in some of these temporary policies that they are coming up with are actually going to be temporary and might not last to even the time that they've set for them to expire. So I would advise that if you qualify for this policy, as soon as possible, submit your application. Don't sit down and wait. That means that if you are eligible, you should act quickly. But it also raises questions about the long-term sustainability of immigration pathways for international students. While this is a temporary relief, many advocates are pushing for more permanent solutions, and the Canadian government might need to consider these in the future. So to sum it all up, Canada's decision to extend the PGWP by 2 years is great news for international students and graduates. It gives you more time to build Canadian work experience, a critical component for securing permanent residency. But remember, this is a temporary policy, so it is important to act quickly and make the most of this opportunity whilst it lasts. Now, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more updates on Canadian immigration and study tips. And if you still have any questions or need personalized advice, I'm here to help. You can book a one-on-one session with me using the link in my description area. Whether it's about work permits, PR, or even life in Canada, I've got you covered. Make sure to link up so that we can learn together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.